This was a good week of chapters, with Sakamoto Days continuing its very good streak of having very good chapters. And with that, we're going to start off with One Piece, chapter 1030, and this was a good chapter. It wasn't great like it usually is, as most people feel that it's a very bad chapter. I think it's fine. I think it did what it did, and as with most of the Wano chapters, he jammed in a lot of information and a lot of events to move the story along at a very fast pace. This one's no different, as you get about 3 different major quote-unquote events, with the first one being that Apu offers Drake a way to win this war without getting too much blood on their hands, while Apu aligns with the numbers, or at least 3 of them, these 3 very powerful looking ones, to try to take down what's there, showing that he actually didn't have any real loyalty to Kaido, which I was surprised by, that it was Hawkins that actually went down with Kaido, where I thought Apu would. But Apu is always the opportunistic one, and X-Drake is struggling with that decision, not knowing whether to take it or not. The next major event is the fact that Kinemon is at the moment still alive. The big interesting part of this for me is the fact that I think this is the first time we've seen someone who was cut in half by Law and then reattached get a similar injury, and from what it's showing, that maybe Law doesn't reattach people correctly, or at least fully. So at some point in the future, maybe through whatever means, you could actually just pop off again instead of staying stuck together, which adds an oddly cruel element to Law's ability and really makes him look more villainous than we even initially thought, leaving that he was the surgeon of death. Now he feels very much more like it, as he doesn't actually fix the people he cuts up with his power. So I thought that was interesting, and maybe it's true, maybe it's just Oda's way of doing something here that he probably shouldn't have done. Do I think it's a great decision? No, but I personally have enough faith in Oda that I believe he'll make a better one in the future. So I'm going to hold out and see how this ends up playing out before I cast complete judgment on this. Do I think Kinemon, having even been conscious, it's fine. The whole point of this arc is that they don't give up, that they just keep fighting no matter what the odds are, so him still clinging to life fits that tone, but I just don't see it being as, oh, everyone's gonna live, as I think everyone else seems to think so. We'll end up seeing if I end up being right or wrong in the end. This also could, in a joking manner, be a way for Usopp to have a kind of real heroic moment in this arc, though that's stretching things. Adding another unnecessary element to the whole fight also doesn't seem to help, as it's causing more clutter than drama, but we'll end up seeing in the end, because I think Wano will play out very much differently for those who end up reading it after the series is finished or after the arc is finished than those of us who are reading it as it's happening. That'll be a very curious thing to see on future rereads of One Piece. The last big event of the chapter was the fight between Law and Kid versus Big Mom. This fight, it's revealed that Law and Kid are actually awakened Devil Fruit users, though their awakened powers drain them quite a bit. I think Law has been awakened since the beginning, as I could be wrong. I'm not really going to go look back and prove whether I'm right or wrong. It's sort of just speculation. If someone knows the answer, please do tell me. But I think the Gamma Knife was either a just special move of his Devil Fruit, or it was him actually having used his awakened Devil Fruit, but Oda didn't want to reveal it yet, as what he does here is a very similar power to what the Gamma Knife did to Doflamingo, being able to shock someone from the inside, as the weapon is able just to pierce through someone's skin. So I thought that was interesting, and Kid's awakened ability seems to be that he can assign someone magnetism, which forces the entire area to magnetize towards them. I thought that was actually very interesting in a fairly similar way to what Dofi does, creating everything out of string to use and manipulate to attack people. Instead, this time it's someone now gets magnetized and all the metal goes to them in a crashing speed that could crush them. Ironically, to a degree, this seems to be a weakness of Big Mom and her skin to a degree, similar to Luffy, where fall damage and environmental damage seems to pile up through time. Despite him being immune to most physical attacks, Big Mom tends to have a similar problem, so I do think this probably hurt her more than she'll let on, especially after what Law did. So it looks like Kid and Law were able to get at least one minor victory so far over Big Mom. Whether she stays down and out after this major attack remains to be seen, but I thought this was a very good showing of how powerful Law and Kid are, as I think they needed it, seeing as how Luffy seemingly took the next step to surpass them. They needed something to put them back on his similar level. With them being awakened to a degree, it does make me wonder if Luffy's awakened, but that's more for us to see later, as I have a theory he is, but he's saving it for Shanks. He's not going to fight anyone with his awakened ability until he fights Shanks, and I think that's sort of a interesting wrinkle in that he's actually been holding back this whole time, though it could also not be very good. I can see people getting upset with that. Why didn't he use it earlier? But I thought this was a good chapter, not great, but good. So overall, I'll be giving this chapter a B. Like I said, it was good. It had some interesting moments with Apu and X Drake potentially forming an alliance to take out whoever wins, and Law and Kid getting the one up on Big Mom for now. The fight's probably not over yet, but they at least have a fighting chance of doing something for the moment. The one big down note is Kinemon still being alive and Orochi causing even more chaos for this fight that really didn't need too much more, but I think eventually it'll calm down to a dull one-on-ones, and I don't mean dull as in it'll be bad fights. I mean it'll quiet down to where it's just these one-on-one fights with nothing else at stake outside of the win or loss of said fights. So now we're on to Black Clover, chapter 311, and this was a good chapter with Yuno having defeated Xenon full stop, and them somewhat not connecting, but Xenon wonders why Yuno was able to succeed where he failed, and it was just that he was able to, instead of Xenon more or less putting the mission above his friend, where Yuno did not. With that, all three of the Dark Triad are defeated. However, things don't end up working out, as the advent of Lithoth is still advancing. The death tree is still growing, mostly because Lucifero transferred himself into the blind doctor who was creating the tree, having it that he had a different vessel just in case Dante was a waste, which he ended up being. We see that even Dorothy couldn't use her magic to stop the doctor with his heightened devil host powers, and the other Diamond Kingdom defective who was just trying to protect his family. Probably when Xenon attacked, he probably surrendered, knowing he had no chance of fighting and winning in that scenario, joining up with the Spade Kingdom only to find that death was basically all that was waiting him and his family. Deciding now that it was probably time to put up or shut up, he is now fighting to survive and save his family from the doctor here and Lucifero. Yami and Vengeance are still in trouble, as it looks like they're starting to really be eaten away by the tree, which is very interesting, as the doctor here seems to be able to modify and stitch up different devils together to make monstrous creations, as it seems as though his power level is very much increased with Lucifero. Apparently, if the tree makes it to its next stage, Lucifero will be able to go there in the flesh. He even was able to outmaneuver Magnacula, who thought she had outmaneuvered him. So it looks like there's a whole bunch of betrayal going on within the Devil Society as a whole, as each devil tries to one-up the other. To a degree, it looks like Yami was able to feel the Black Bull's presence, as the rest of the group, a part of the base of the Black Bulls, storm into the castle that they're in, where the tree is growing, and are there to try to save Yami. I don't think it'll end up working out, as I've said before. However, I don't know how it'll go. At this point, I'm very curious to see if they try to pull the last minute they win scenario and Lucifero disappears for a while. I wouldn't be surprised, though, like I've said, I don't know if that's a great decision. I think them losing and everything changing is a pretty fun and different twist on how this would go. But if he does take the more normal route of having it that they just pull off the win and Lucifero has to go back kind of underground to set up his schemes, that at least leaves a major villain in the background stewing, maybe with whatever else Asta and co have to do, and struggling with his new life, whatever. You can push it either in those two directions. Either they lose and they have to regroup in a very much different and harder circumstance, or you have it that they win and the major villain continues to haunt them in the background, causing new villains to arrive, and then even those who that seem unrelated to him are related to him. It's something like that, and it's curious to see where and how it goes from there. So that was the chapter. I thought it was good. So overall, I'll give it a B. It was good. The fighting was good, even though there wasn't too much. It was just sort of the end of Yuno and Xenon, and the twist that Lucifero is still going to get his way no matter what path he has to choose. The Doctor also seems very powerful. I had initially thought it was the fourth brother of Xenon. He seemingly is still not around, and I wonder where he is. But it ended up being the Doctor, who seems very powerful and is fully willing to serve the devils. So now we're on to Undead Unluck, chapter 85, and this was a good chapter, continuing the fight between Fuko and Spring, and even learning a bit more about Ishin, seeing as how Ishin isn't what they seem to be. That's sort of the whole point of this chapter, as we learn that the game they will be playing is basically Beyblade, but with tops, which I guess is always what Beyblade is. But the point being is I was surprised that it basically was Beyblade, which I was just shocked by. Spring chooses Andy, Undead, and Fuko chooses Unbreakable, who apparently their ability is that they can make weapons and armor to be unbreakable, but they themselves are not. Ishin is in a big unbreakable body of armor, and apparently from this chapter we learn is that Unbreakable has been passed down from person to person within this sort of sect of people, each taking the name of Ishin and wearing this armor, but each one is powerful in their own right and similar, and we find out that this current Ishin is actually a girl, and she's very timid and scared, not really wanting to fight. However, she does want to be useful and does want to help in her own way, struggling with finding the courage and thinking that many of the younger members like Fuko and Chikara and Top were like her. However, those two proved otherwise, and so is Fuko. Fuko then decides that she wants to help Ishin in whatever way she can, and we do find out that the old friend that Spring had in the Top memory was one of the older Ishins, and that they were friends, and that the old, or maybe even the first Ishin did love Spring, which then causes Spring to struggle. However, God's brainwashing control over Spring kicks in and forces him to continue the fight. The battle is on as Unbreakable is made into a Top and fights Undead. Though, despite having confidence at first, as soon as the action starts, she isn't very confident. So that was the chapter. I thought it was actually pretty good, showing us some more about some of the other characters, as well as Ishin in particular. This continues to feed into my theory that Fuko goes back in time and has to become the new leader of the Union to go for one last attempt at God when they fail this time, as she's just learning about everyone, and I can only imagine how her power would grow if she had more time to master it and to be the leader of the Union in the end. That would be very interesting. So for now, we're learning more and more about these other side characters for the moment, and that's a good thing, and I hope we learn more about them, as each arc seemingly is for a new character, as well as Fuko. So overall, I'd give this chapter a B. It was good, seeing more side character backstory, as well as just story development and character development. And Fuko continues to show that she is a very formidable foe, having both the compassion and resolve to see whatever conflict through and whatever way she wants to resolve said conflict, mostly through whatever peaceful means she can, and helping everyone. This could be a very irritating type of protagonist, but I find Fuko is just right in what she wants to do, as well as willing to sacrifice herself and the whole thing. I find she's not as bad as some other ones, but that's just my personal preference on the matter. But yes, the fight should be interesting, as Spring continues to struggle between wanting to accept that maybe humans aren't all bad, but is completely under the control of God in this battle. So now we're on to Sakamoto Days chapter 45, and this was a great chapter, as it starts right off where it left off, with Minimalist, the serial killer that can crush anything into a small ball, outright attacking Sakamoto's wife, only for it to be revealed that no, it was never Sakamoto's wife, it was always Nagumo, which I thought was a rather funny twist, especially as we see later that Sakamoto asked him to man the store because he's afraid for his family. I thought it was a good twist to it, mostly because I didn't know how it would go, but this one ends up working out just fine. It's a finish to a battle. It was a very funny twist that I didn't see coming, but a welcome one at that, so that it takes the tension that I felt last week and then reverses it, where now it's like, yay, no, nothing bad's gonna happen. But now we get another good fight, which should be very interesting, as Nagumo is actually very powerful, and we get to see him fight one-on-one, which, yeah, we've seen Osuragi do as well. So we'll at least get two, which is fun. And then we get to see Hisuke spot and kind of go one-on-one with Apart, as Apart shows that he is also very powerful, which was surprising. Seeing how Saw and Dump they were strong, but weren't super strong. These two seemed to be very powerful. Maybe it was just that the other two, Saw seemed rather weak. He lost to just a powered up Low and Shin, but I mean, Osuragi is one of the toughest ones, so maybe Dump was fairly powerful, but these two seem particularly strong, as we see when Apart and Hisuke start going one-on-one. Hisuke is very much no match for Apart and gets saved by an emerging from the elevator Sakamoto in one of the, I don't know, I think it's pretty badass ways that he actually arrived and then straight up clotheslined Apart across the room. And the thing is, Apart took that hit and was perfectly fine, and that's one of the first times we've seen that in this entire series, where Sakamoto threw a punch and the other person was fine. So that leaves me very much looking forward to seeing what type of fight we're about to get from both sides, from the Minimalist versus Nagumo fight and the Apart versus Sakamoto fight. Now has me very much hyped up to see how either one ends. I imagine quickly for the heroes, as both of our heroes here are very powerful, but I have a feeling that one of them's not going to go the way the other one thought, and mostly that's because I don't think Apart's going to go down very easily. But we'll end up seeing, as I'm just excited to see where this particular battles go, as I think they're very good. So I really thought this chapter was excellent. I thought the twist in the beginning with Sakamoto's wife ending up being Nagumo and being safe overall was a nice change of pace, as well as leads to a very fun fight between Minimalist and Nagumo, and Sakamoto arriving to save Hisuke from Apart and starting that clash of titans was another very good and entertaining way of having those two fights start. So overall, I'd give this chapter an A. I feel Sakamoto's really on a good roll right now, having it that we care about most of the characters we've seen, and we want them to continue to be good, as well as seeing how they defeat the villains. I think Sakamoto's on a very good run right now, and I look forward to seeing where it goes with what's going on, because I can't imagine I don't know where it can go after it can go anywhere after the serial killers, but I'm very curious to see how they handle the situation from there after they defeat the serial killers and see what X does next. So now we're on to the Hunters Guild Red Hood, chapter 17, and this was a good chapter, again, continuing to hear the plot of what the mayor wants and how the world works. Big exposition one, as well as Cinderella pleading with Debonair to help her stop the mayor. So we get to see all of that. They all plan on trying to help in whatever way they can and help Velo. But then we get to the explanation of why and how the world works the way it does. And it's pretty much that the world is overseen by gods, in a manner of speaking, which they call the readers. And if the story isn't good, they'll simply wipe out humanity, which I kind of love for a storytelling perspective. The fact that the characters in the manga here are aware that they are nothing more than stories, leading to a fun way of telling a story in a way that the authors are gods, and that's sort of what's going on here, but a little bit reversed, as the readers are the gods and they can kind of destroy a story if they don't like it, which ironically for Shonen Jump is very apropos. It's very within line that if a story doesn't do well, it gets canned, thus killing the people in that story, which is super meta, and I really enjoy that style of storytelling, where it's sort of alluding to that the readers have all the control and the storytellers within the world have to make the stories interesting. And apparently they have tried to eradicate werewolves in many different stories, from outbreaks to cataclysmic disasters, out magical powers, nuclear warfare, which is surprising, and they've had 7 attempts and all of them ended with human race being eradicated. But every time that happens, it just simply gets remade, which is super, again, interesting. So the mayor simply plans on trying to get rid of the whole thing. If they can't control their lives, might as well end everything in one fell swoop, destroying the book and simply killing everyone, which is an extreme way to put it, but if you think about it, that their fate is just simply to be puppets in a very obvious play that needs to be very entertaining, one can look at it that way. However, I also don't think he's right. The other storyteller explains that they have to do these plays and to be entertaining for the gods to make sure that they continue to live. If the story isn't entertaining or fun, then the readers get rid of the story. And so tragedy befalls mankind, but heroes rise and you get entertaining stories out of it. That's why they can't just simply either get rid of werewolves, they can't simply make the story easy for everyone, because that's not entertaining to the readers. So they have to create tragedy and problems, monsters, everything they can to make heroes and raise them up to at least thin out some of the monsters in a way. It reduces the number of monsters and eventually maybe things will get easier. But they have to keep doing this in this scenario. And apparently they're on the 8th scenario where the werewolves came from a lycanthropy virus and that they're trying to make a special medicine. However, the mayor doesn't care. As I've said, he plans on destroying everything, because why keep up the charade when nothing really matters, is sort of what he alludes to. And he wants to end it all and destroy the entire world. This is when Debonair and Cinderella attack, and they feel the attack. The mayor entraps them in an even thicker wall to protect them, and basically goes out to swat away our heroes for right now, Debonair and Cinderella. Now, with these revelations, it leads it to continue to be very interesting, with so many different paths you can choose. Learning how the world works, and the fact that the guild is basically made to keep the story going so they can eventually try to find a way to have it that everyone gets a happily ever after, from what I can kind of gather. The mayor was fed up and wants just to end it all. A very extreme point of view, and one that one can understand having in this scenario. And I'm curious to see how Velo's going to work this out, as he seems to be immune to the storybook, as he can't be really put in it, and he unravels the book wherever he's at. So I wonder how they're going to play that out. Are they going to have it that he again joins the mayor and plans on destroying everything? Will he join the guild and continue their plan, but wants to do it in a bit more gung-ho manner, maybe in whatever way that could take form? Will he just go off on his own? The points still stand at where they were last week, but we learned a little bit more in the fact you basically have two sides. End it all, because what's the point if you're being controlled like puppets, as the mayor points, or the current Red Hood storyteller continues to want to keep the world going, to continue to make it a better place as best they can. Despite the tragedy of making interesting stories, they can at least make most people's lives go on. The heroes might suffer more than most, but at least most normal people, outside of those who have to suffer in the tragedies to create a hero, do get to live their lives as they continue to work out a way to make some semblance of peace. So it's very interesting to see which side could eventually win out in this scenario, but for now, that's the two sides. The mayor could continuously be a thorn in this story's side, and I think that's a sort of interesting outcome, to see the villain's sort of persuasive argument only to be rebutted, and then we have to see him continue to try to succeed in his plan as the heroes try to succeed in theirs. So overall, I'd give that chapter a B. I thought it was good, continuing to explain how the world works and how the story could eventually unfold. I do look forward to seeing how it will unfold and hope that the rumor that I heard that this might be ending in the next issue aren't true, because I think this has such a long shelf life that it could do so many things, but it could be ending at any point, which would be a very big waste of what this story could achieve. It also gives me very little faith that anything that Shonen Jump wants to really do is anything of any interest, because every new manga that comes out that has any potential, they nip right in the bud, simply because they don't sell well immediately. But that's a problem for another day. So that was all the chapters, the major chapters anyway, and this was a good week overall, with One Piece being a bit more disappointing than usual, but everything else stepping up to the plate rather well, with Black Clover and Undead Unluck continuing their battles and extending their arcs with new fights and new problems to solve, with Sakamoto starting their next set of battles right after a climactic end to last week to continue their momentum, and Red Hood having it that their story continues to get very, very interesting with time. There was no Mashal this week, I forgot to mention that before, but that's fine. Having that be on break isn't a big deal. Now for the rest of the chapters, My Hero was fine. I think My Hero is a lesson in what happens when a reader, myself, loses faith in the author. I have no faith in what the author of My Hero is going to do, so I think every chapter is mediocre, where I have faith in what Oda is going to do because I still think he can do right decisions and good things. So when he makes a bad decision, I don't immediately assume the whole story is going down the drain, like in My Hero, where I just have no faith in the man. So that's the major difference between the two. But My Hero is fine, having it that Star and Stripe continues to fight Shigaraki. The Elusive Samurai was good. It continues its war arc before a war arc. They have one last major skirmish, and we get to meet some of the other side characters. The Izakura family was good, as we see that Futaba needs help learning technology, and we see that Shion is unwilling but then willing to help her, and we see how close the family is. That's pretty much the whole chapter. Nero is also very good. It continues its good momentum, having it that Nero and his partner win their fight. I've heard that this might also end in the next issue, which I hope it doesn't. This one has a very nice sport vibe that I think Blue Box fails to achieve, as it's very much more about the relationship drama of the two main leads. Speaking of Blue Box, as I just said, major drama, two main leads, still trying to do this whole love romance thing, while its sport emphasis is in the background. Spy Family was good. It's always good. That was all the chapters. It was a very good week of chapters as a whole, and hopefully One Piece can bounce back. Sakamoto can keep its momentum. Black Clover continues what it's doing, Undead continues its thing, and that Red Hood doesn't end next week. That's all I'm hoping for. So if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and as always, thank you for watching.